such an asshole.
So we got a lengthy request, and I had to do a little bit of research, and the research proved to be that I'm like, I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but I'm like, can you? How long? It's from the Nutty Professor, where you just can't find the data you're looking for. All I wanted to search, all I wanted to know was how long did divorced men live? That's how I started this research. Because they're like, you know, let me perk up my fucking ass, you know. What bullshit are you going to spew now, Karen? Married men live. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, but divorced men don't. That was the whole thing. The logic where you don't need to, like, yeah, but what are divorced men? So you should just go up and marry those girls, not with the divorce rate. So I wanted to find out life expectancy divorced men. By God, you can't. You gotta search. And even then, like, what is it? Who's pushing them in there? Where the hell are they? Just simple questions. I want a number. How much less do divorced men live? Well, studies suggest, research shows. Give me a number. Found the number. If you are married, you guys ready for how many more years you're going to live? If you give me the number I found, and by the way, if any of you would like to contribute counter evidence and give me the numbers that you find, because I'm not spending hours and days looking for numbers that should be readily available. One data point had a 2 whole years. Little shucks howdy, 2 whole years. If you're married. And then another one, there was a chart. There was no difference. It was like never married, married, and then divorced. And the divorced guys, I think in that one, it was 5 years younger or died earlier. One data point said it was 13 years. But I had to impute that. They just can't give you the fucking data. Research has shown that getting divorced they all agree it shortens your life expectancy. And they said as much as a heavy drinker or smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I'm like, what is that in years, you fucking assholes? Can't find it. So I just went, okay, heavy smoking, heavy drinking, loss of life expectancy. Depending again on the study, one was like 10, another was 13. So divorce will lob off, let's just call it 10 years. Okay? Well, if you get married, here's the numbers. You want me to translate the numbers for you? Here's the numbers. Marriage is a proposition of a 50% chance, technically a little bit more, a 55% chance of you living an extra 2 years, or 45% chance of you dying a decade earlier. And there's another chart. I should find the chart. I got it linked. Not linked. I got it on my phone. There's another chart that shows no advantage whatsoever. This is looking in the past. We haven't even talked about what's going to happen to you poor schmucks getting married today. Boomers ain't even dead yet. They still got a little bit of time left on the clock. They could, hey, ladies, you can, silver divorce. 73's the new 41. Go ahead. Go ahead. What was it? Bill Gates, Melinda Gates. Yeah, good going, Melinda. There you go. All right, so let me go through this guy's request. And because it's long and detailed and all that, we're going to answer one question at a time. I'm going to synopsisize his first half of the email. Just say he's an incredibly successful man, self-employed type. And he's looking to get married and have a wife. Anyway, here's my actual question to you. A lot of statistics say that men live shorter lives when they don't get married, but women actually don't have a change in life expectancy when they don't get married. That might be true. I did not find that data. I could see that. But I did find that women, again, they didn't give a number, but when women get divorced, they also die earlier. Not as much as men. They did percentages. They did say, they suffer from higher cardiac problems. And that's like, how long? Part of me is skeptical, since if the reverse finding was empirically found, I don't think it would be published. Again, not a conspiracy theorist, but yeah, it's interesting how you can't find data. I'm surprised I found the data on the Department of Labor that show what men and women did for a living in the United States by percentages. I'm surprised they haven't taken, because it's just glaring proof women simply don't work as much or as hard in fields that matter as men. It's just glaring evidence that is contrary to the narrative they want to push. Part of it, and yeah, fine. I'm sure if you wanted to dig or pull it up on JSTOR, you could probably find it. But logic would say if women got divorced, they it's not good for you health wise. But I don't know. Women really aren't that interested in guys. I think if they never got married, they'd be okay. I don't think there'd be a change in life expectancy. But I'm sure there's some truth to it. Bachelors are more likely to drink and smoke in excess, for example, correct? But I wonder how much you'd attribute declines in life expectancy to the different causes. There's a commingling factor. Generally speaking, if you get married, that means you're probably more responsible. If you stay married, it means you're more responsible. And if you're irresponsible, like you're who dang diggly do dang diggly in Wyoming or something like that, you're irresponsible. And so it's not a shock that irresponsible people get divorced more and also have bad behaviors and poor decision-making skills compared to people who are mature enough to stay married. And so someone who drinks and smokes and doesn't take care of themselves and is fat, surprise, your wife divorces you. There's a selection bias. You already are prone to making poorer health decisions, which would also lower your life expectancy. So you're already skewed to make bad decisions and live less if you weren't cut out for marriage because you like the maturity and the responsibility. And then I would say on top of it, which the divorce statistic where it lops off basically a decade of your life, I'm like, well, then there's an emotional component there too, psychological component. So divorce is bad on top of that in either case. So let me get back to your thing. But I wonder how much you'd attribute declines in life expectancy to different causes. There, I don't know. If we had Fred the actuary, he could kind of break that down. But given the one study there are a couple studies, but one is like, yeah, this is like being a heavy drinker or a smoker. That really walloped it down. I'd ballpark it at 75% the actual act of divorce and the stress and all that comes with it, which also can lead you to engage in self-destructive behaviors. And then you being stupid and immature and predisposed to already making bad decisions, which means you were going to get divorced anyway, I'd say that's 25%. That's a rough ballpark. I could be way off, but the data that we came up with that I was seeing, it's such a shock to the system that I would think it's mostly the fact you got divorced, and to a lesser extent, but not insignificant, that you got divorced because you made bad choices, including health choices. I mean, how many guys? Let's go through a classic example, like which probably happens in the majority of marriages in the United States. Wife gets fat because, right, ladies? My God, fuck the guy, right? Oh, food, nom, 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 nom. The nomsies. She gets fat. He gets depressed because men need sex. He ends up getting fat, makes it a depressed, sad lifestyle. You end up filing for divorce. I mean, it's not good. It's not good. I think what kind of the idea was a slogan. It's called "Skinny Wives Save Lives," but I'm sure if I went and pulled the data, I could write a nice little short book about it, where like thin, healthy people would lower divorce, increase life expectancy, give people a reason to live. But right, I know, you're not going to live, no man. What did that entire generation, that entire group of humans that just went extinct? What was it? They did this thing. We archaeologists in the year 3500, we can't figure out what that meant. But they all went extinct. Little head thing too. They were highly educated as well. Didn't need no. I don't know what that meant. Someone translate. If almost all this is sampling bias, i.e. married men marry partly because they have their life together more on average than the other group, historical bias example, to conduct a longevity study, you need sample older men who had a different sample of women than what you do today. Yes. So we're so far agreeing on that. You bring up third variable, and that is all marriage and data and divorce statistics. They're very hard to pin down because what if you were married until you were in the 80s and all your polling that would have been a successful marriage, and then at the last minute, bottom of the ninth, you get divorced? Well, that now got to throw for all the past whatever 60 years they were married. So it's really a moving target and hard to pin down. But I would say now that the World War II generation is pretty much dead and widowed, if any are still alive, and now the boomers are starting to go into it, you're going to start to see. I would predict, because the boomers were the first ones to, slay their children, to send their children to Moloch and burn them on the altar of divorce. You're going to start to see what small advantage to marriage there was. I think you'd start to see that edge away. I think there will be no premium for life expectancy for men anyway. I don't know about women. I think that premium will go away. Again, that other chart suggested there was no premium. And I would, because marriage, you girls just don't, we're in a new world. You girls don't need men. You don't want men. And if you're going to take a guy, you're like, no, I'll change it. You get divorced. It's horrible for everyone. And I think that as less than most people are getting married, I think the single men, depending on how much the red pill self-improvement message gets out there, I think, no, now I think about it, no. I think at best it'll close the gap. It won't surpass married men. And the reason I'll say is very simple. I keep thinking my team, my crew. For every one of those, there's going to be some kid who gets fat. Obesity is going to make that not happen. I think single men who are the incel variety, who live at home, they listen to Vouch, they believe in socialism, and I'm a sad sack of shit, and I got a mental disorder I don't really have, but UBI, AI, give me free shit. Andrew Yang, that group, with the pot smoking and both legal and illegal drugs. Those guys, they don't work out. Yeah. When you factor in that the military now has to have basic training to eliminate stress fractures, because the recruits will break bones through basic training. Yeah, I don't think the single men. Yeah, I don't think single men will surpass it. Divorced men, I still think will essentially live a decade shorter. But I believe the gap will close a little. Maybe not on parity with each other, but I think it will close a little as the divorce statistics no longer account for the World War II generation or silent generation. And now you got people who, like, God almighty, that Moloch statue really, the Moloch statue, they got one in California, and all the boomers went off there and jerked off to it. Man, they got to clean that full of boomer cum all the time. And now it's Xer cum. Don't worry, you millennials are going to get divorced too. It's just so tiring. There's not a water deficit out there in California. You got to wash it off all the time. I'm sure the divorce statistics will, that will be baked into it. And you're going to start to see life expectancy close the gap. And I think women, here's another thing though, not married or so, but the life expectancy gap between men and women, which is about 4 years, that's closing. But that's because women are having to start work for a living, or they ask for it. But yeah, there's a lot less stable men. There's a lot less stable marriages, and girls don't need no. And then they go and, oh, how is that working 60 hours a week and commuting? Oh no, you got this. You got this, girl. Don't need no. Whatever you do, don't make a man happy. Okay, don't settle for a man. If almost all, but I wonder how much you attribute declines to life expectancy to different causes. If almost all of this is sampling bias, example, married men marry partly because they have their life together. That is a factor. More than an average of the other group. Historical bias, example, to conduct a longevity study, you need to sample older men who had a different sample of women than we do today. Let's call it the World War II generation effect, and clearly poor lifestyle choices, smoking, drinking. I'd say obesity, eating, and inactivity, no exercise. That would be for the younger people. Then there's nothing to worry about. But there's also some truth to the concept that the relationships in your life are the most powerful predictors of well-being. And the famous George Valiant longitudinal study of men, the finding was that love was the most powerful predictor of well-being after the avoidance of excessive drinking and smoking. Moreover, apparently one of the most powerful predictors of heart attack survival for men is the question, does your wife love you? Which seems correct to me. Yes. Now, I didn't look up the study, but surprise, if your wife isn't a weapons grade bitch, you might live longer. It's one of those, do we really need a study for this? Like that there was that Chinese company and it hired cute girls they were a programming firm. So you got these nerdy Asian dudes and they're programming. And all they did was have cute, nicely dressed young ladies come in and just see how the guys were doing, talk to them, treated them nice, gave them like tea or something. And I think productivity shot up like 50%. Shocking, I know. Men are the engines of economic growth and women are the fuel they run on. But we don't want to be fuel. I hope you like eating rocks. Dirt cookies for everyone, I guess. But imagine that if your wife loves you, you might work a little bit more and live a little bit longer. I'll tell you, I guarantee this data doesn't exist. I would love to see longevity of men whose wives were thin and in shape and not obese and were having sex regularly versus men whose wives might have been in shape but no sex or not sex regularly and fat wives who the fuck wants to fuck them. I'm being deadly. You show me that. Skinny wives save lives. Another way of framing this question is much of your content presumes that much of why men pursue women is due to biological desire for sex rather than say biological need for sex or biological need for physical touch and in-person companionship. And this is why men ignore the fact that women increasingly are not worth pursuing, at least not actively. I see it would blind them. I think their sex drive blinds them. In your words, an addiction to pussy can ruin your life because it can lead you to not just walk away when really a relationship doesn't benefit you. Correct. I would say more modernly today, I don't know how we'd measure it, but I think women just don't want to get married if we look at polling data. The increase in divorce rates, not nominal, that's going down because people just aren't getting married. Both men and women getting fat and overweight. So you prefer food and sloth over love and sex and marriage. That's a fact. That's a choice you all made with your behavior. I don't care what you say otherwise. Until I see thinner people, I'm not going to believe it. Relationships are increasingly a losing proposition. Yes. But what if it is a biological need and without it, we're likely to live worse or shorter lives? I do think on balance, the ROI is quite low. Also, I find it amusing that the same research doesn't seem to include the women live much shorter lives when unmarried, although they will say there's still some effect. So let me read this again. And this is why men ignore the fact women are because they're not worth pursuing, at least not actively in your words. An addiction to pussy can ruin your life because it can lead you to not just walk away in a relationship, but if it's a biological need and without it, we're likely to live worse or shorter lives. So what you're presenting is male's biology, which is in the past, being introduced to a new reality in the world where women are just not that interested in men, and therefore marriage is not going to be as rewarding or fun or good for men's health. And that's what I think the environment we're going into now. Women just don't want to get married that much. Women are not marriage material, generally speaking, at least in a traditional sense. However, that doesn't change men's programming and what I think men will do because they're men and obviously want sex and historically want to get married, probably have some kids. That will push them into it. That the 18, 19-year-old kid doesn't know jack shit. He's dumb. Men would still pursue it. And their instincts you would make the part argument, it's because not only they want to have sex and all, but they would live longer and arguably happier lives, but they are unaware that the environment has changed, that a relationship in many instances is going to be worse for their health. So your instinct is not sentient. It doesn't have to, wait a minute, hang on now. That's bad. However, your frontal cortex is sentient, and if you're like any young man alive today, you've seen at least two relatives get divorced, maybe most likely your father. Oh, by the way, There is a study. Children of divorce live 5 years less. They had the data for that. They don't tell you how less your dad's going to live. But children of divorce, 5 years off your clock. So your blind instinct is compelling men to go and chase girls. However, I think men are changing, but there's a lot less marriage going on. Men say, look, you can't have 3 generations of divorce and a war where one sex is telling we don't need you. You can't have that pounded into people's heads, or men's heads in this case, and have them not like, okay, wait, no. Now I remember my parents getting divorced. Now I remember being poor, or whatever, sleeping on the floor. No, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. And then, in spite of their genetics, are making conscious, intelligent decisions with new information and the new interest or lack of interest women have in men. And so I think men are adapting and adjusting, but it doesn't turn off the genetics. And so you could argue genetically, biologically, I want to make sure we're not run out. Good. A happy relationship would make men live longer. But absent that, what we're looking at is no, there's no happy relationship. So you're not going to get the advantage of longer life expectancy if you got into a relationship. However, if a bad relationship, particularly if it ends in divorce, lowers your life expectancy even more than being single and living a mere 2 years less than the average married man, when given those data and statistics and propositions, I think, again, when we have data and statistics, we got the internet. Now that bit of information goes like, yeah, you may just want to just be single, and you're not going to live longer. You're not going to get that 2-year premium, but that really wasn't on the table anyway. So now we have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Do you want to get in a relationship and have your life expectancy shot down by arguably 10% in the case of divorce, or do you just want to remain single? And it sucks, like 90, well, not 90, but half the emails I get, the requests are about like, I'd like to get married, but God almighty, I can't, this is not good for me. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks, but that's your old school biology talking. And I'm telling you the real world again. I'm like, look, buddy, they're out there. They're rare. They're out there, and get them if you can. But otherwise, you're going to have to go to a traditional culture, frankly. And even that has problems. It wasn't the internet. My computer just freaked out. And for once, this wasn't. Sorry about that, guys. Hang on, I gotta pull up the email now. My computer. It was the weirdest shutdown. Hey, if it is the government, fuck you. Change everyone else's behaviors. People are sick of this shit. Again, not a big. All right, let me go back to this email. Somebody fucked up their job. I don't believe it's the government. It's not Cox. For once, it's not Cox AD16. It ain't. Let's go back. Just when you're on a roll. Maybe I'll do better in South Korea. Okay, here we go. Okay, so, but what if it is a biological need and without it, you're likely to live worse or shorter lives? You would still live a better life than entering a relationship that is bad for you. That's the short version. I think that's what the stage we're at now. Again, the right girl can make all the difference. You show me a man who's had a hot svelte wife her entire life who sucked his dick. I'm going to see you guys going to make it past 80. I'm curious about your opinion on how men can essentially replace the void of what is missing and what appears to likely be a fundamental need. So to answer your question shortly, I wrote that book called The Menu, Life Without the Opposite Sex. And look, this isn't my opinion, okay? The bigger people at Wall Street, they forecasted that half the girls aren't going to get married by 2030, which is coming up pretty soon. And so half of the guys aren't going to be. So you're going to have to figure out something to do without the opposite sex. This is not a politically incorrect statement. This is not a controversial thing. It's a fact. Right? So I came up with a book, Life Without the Opposite Sex. How can men essentially replace the void? You got to live your life the best you can. And that's why I came up with the menu. Sir, there's no steak on the menu, but we got some chicken. We got a great fish dish. We got some great pasta. We got some gnocchi. What do you want? There's no reason to leave the restaurant and end it early when you could try everything on the menu. And in some ways, it's kind of liberating. Like, look, do you know how much time and money you spend chasing girls and raising a family? Do you know what you could achieve in other endeavors? And I'll be the first man. No, you'd rather have a nice wife and kids. I don't want kids, but yeah, you want to have a nice, loving. I get it, but that's not it. We don't get that choice now. So there's a lot of other things you can do. It's in the menu. I'm not going to go over it here. My last question is, how do you get around the almost epistemological problem that we can't really prove that all women are such and such a way? What the hell? Epistemological? Jesus, what the hell is that? Epistemological. Relating to the theory of knowledge, especially in regards to its methods, validity, and scope, and the distinction between justified belief and opinion. How do you get around the almost epistemological that we can't really prove that all women are such and such a way? When I tell people that, hey, I have a large sample size here, actually, and my findings that they are essentially mostly this way, they universally will tell me, well, not, dude, the tall Asian argument. Oh, yeah. No, that, you ignore those people. Those people they lack what's called intellectual honesty. Like, I don't argue with people who are not going to be intellectually honest. You know, I make the statement, there's not a lot of Asians in the NBA because Asians are short. And some low IQ fucking idiot. Okay. I know a tall Asian, or I think the Yang guy, he's actually very tall. And you're dealing with someone who is either truly stupid and can't get the concept of general, or you have an ideologue who has no intellectual honesty, is actually quite evil, and is trying to make a point because they want to live in a dis-reality and somehow extract resources out of you. And so when you say I've dated over 100 women, and generally this is what I've found, girls, well, I know a family, and I know it. It's like, look, you want to, in that case, as you're pertaining with the war of the sexes, they just want to keep excusing their bad behavior, which then requires you to understand the concept of, what the hell is it called? The perfect mental state, which isn't necessarily evil or bad. It's just that the perfect mental state is that, above all else, he said, what do women want? Women want the perfect mental state. They want to believe what they want to believe, and they will not tolerate anything they don't want to believe, or that would otherwise indicate that what they believe is not possible or true. In other words, they'd rather live in the lie than give up on their dream that is a falsehood. So when you say your prince is not coming because you're overweight, you have some other man's kid, super hypersonic re. No, and they would rather die or not die. They would, well, that too. They would rather live a life not worth living that is not based in reality with no progress or success than that. And so they will, in order to protect they will not suffer pain. Don't you dare tell something because they do not want to hear it. It causes pain, right? They will immediately reach for any argument, no matter how pointless, stupid, frail, irrelevant. Well, I know someone. It's kind of like the lottery a lot, and this men are guilty of this too. A lot of people choose their college degree thinking that they're going to win the lottery and they're going to be the one to make $250,000 a year with a journalism degree. They're going to go into political science and they're going to be the one to be elected into Congress. Political science majors are like that. And you say, well, yeah, but look at Ocasio-Cortez. She got in. Like, okay, never mind. We're done here. So I wouldn't even argue with these people. You're too high IQ. I didn't go over your background. You're too high IQ to argue with these idiots. Just let them lose at life. Oh yeah, fat women typically don't get. Well, I have a friend and she's halfway good for. Yeah, you know what? Here's some extra donuts. You're right. Here's some extra food. You go, girl. Slay queen. Well, not all women are this way. If you keep looking, you'll find one. No, go get my book, The Book of Numbers, Analyzing the ROI in the Pursuit of Women, and you will see exactly what type of caliber and quality of women are out there for marriage. I'm not saying in other things. There's plenty of good women out there for other things, but marriage is not one of them. My answer to this is that the search cost is too high because the cost of observing whether they are not, that takes months and a lot of resources for an individual person. But in addition to that, a lifelong commitment to many things I otherwise wouldn't want, such as an expensive apartment of furniture, which only got for the female gaze at their own request. This ends up essentially meaning that I don't need to believe that the probability of this belief being true is high for me to conclude it is not worth it for me, a very negative expected value. You're right. Expected rate of return, there's a percent chance that you're going to get this rate of return. You're factoring that in. And I agree with your logic and your reasoning. Now, I don't think men should completely give up on their pursuit of women, but they have to be much more intelligent about it, which is why I also have the Book of Numbers, Analyze the ROI of the Pursuit of Women. I just don't write a book and give you the statistics and say, you're fucked. I then go back and look at the statistics and reverse engineer a very good and effective strategy. And I'll tell you right now, just ask out more girls. That's the number one thing you can do. But you're not wrong. You got to go on dates with them. You got to tolerate them. You got to listen to dumbass shit. You got to suss them out. Well, who was it? Oh, a buddy of mine, hiking buddy. He dated this girl for a month. And then accidentally she let it slip that she had a kid. He's like, what? I get it, man. I get it. I'm curious to hear what you have to say, and I appreciate your content. The pieces about bachelor pad economics and the true opportunity cost of unquestioned pursuit of women are novel and genuinely thought-provoking. It is the most important economic decision facing men right now. Do you spend traditional amounts of time and effort pursuing women, or do you acknowledge that they have a fraction of the interest that they used to, and you change your tactics and strategy accordingly? So you essentially don't waste your life, both financially, chronologically, and psychologically. It was something that I always felt but never had been able to put into words of someone or some fancy charts. You got to admit some of those charts in the. Well, you read Bachelor Pad Economics. I'm talking the Book of Numbers. I really look forward to hearing back from you. Kind regards, keep you anonymous. Yep. So there you go. Simplifying all of this, women are no longer as interested in men as they used to be. That is not something men control, and you need to adapt to that new reality. You do not have the luxury, well, technically neither do women, to have the perfect mental state living in delusion that, no, someday my princess will come. No, because you have way too much riding on this. You could go and have a great career. You could go and travel. You could go and find some great friends. You could have a sex with you could be a playboy, have a sex with a bunch of girls. And culturally speaking, go overseas, maybe find a wife there. But your genetics and biology is going to compel you to pursue women. And man, you look at divorce rates, and people always focus on divorce rates. You should look at happiness marriage rates. That's a real killer. And I didn't set out this way. I just had an intellectual economics interest in it, but we're really kind of saving men's lives. Not that that you're facing an actual biological death, but you guys are facing, because your genetics and sex drive, you're all at a very high risk of wasting your life. And I think many of you have fathers or uncles or somebody you know who did the same thing. And so that's what we're doing here. So link below. The book of numbers analyze the ROI and the pursuit of women. So you know the data and the statistics if you want to see what this guy's talking about with a little bit more charty goodness. And then also, what was the other one? The menu, Life Without the Opposite Sex. If you wanted, you're like, what do we do? It's a very important existential question. Yeah, this is what you do. Let's go to the super chats. We got a couple here. Nonstop Dre in Thailand now. Married men die quicker because they want to. Now, another thing we didn't talk about, when you are married, your wives typically are more on top of health than not. They will nag and hound you, and they should, for you to go in and get your blood work done and all that. That, I think, is a huge explanation. I think that comes from the majority of the life expectancy gap, where it's not necessarily you're happier with this woman. It's just that she forced you to go to the doctor and they found you got high cholesterol. But you men should be on top of that. You gotta, like, they're like, oh my God, he didn't know how to do the dishes. It'd be great is if you all, we close the living gap by making good, healthy choices, which you should do anyway. You get annual blood work, get your colonoscopies. You want doctors shoving their finger up your ass as much as Vince wants other men, randos, shoving their fingers up his ass on the street. All right, just that's what you should do. And I wonder if men just took their health a little bit more seriously, if single men would just close that gap on that alone. My Truth, the king. $2. Y'all need to man up and marry those girl bosses. Yeah, no. Maybe we don't need historical data and statistics. You just know marrying these girl bosses and feminists and leftist types. And that's not because Democrat policies. It's just that you girls have gods and priorities that are not men. I just wish you'd be honest about it. And sometimes they are in polling, but don't get married. I mean, really, girls, don't get married if you don't want to put the guys number one. And many girls are honest about that. But I'm just trying to get you guys like, yeah, you don't need to get married. Yeah. History shows that women used to be interested in men. The era of progressivism and feminism changed how women in society treated men. Maybe I would say it's more the Industrial Revolution and the welfare state. Because I don't think women were that interested in men. I think they just needed men to survive. And where I am kind of like indifferent, like, well, I don't want you really kind of think about, like, if you girls never liked men that much to begin with, God, that must have sucked for all those women in the past. You don't want, okay, fine, bye. Well, bye. Because there's nothing worse than wasting your life trying to cajole or pull tooth a girl to go out. You're like, oh, forget this. I don't have time for that. I roll, therefore I am. 20 Canadian bucks. Married men live longer. I don't know how many times I've heard that trope. Fuck that. I'm with Pop on the 65 and out plan. Your Smith & Wesson retirement plan is very similar. Getting old has no appeal to me. I don't know. My old man went hiking. You can make old fun. Old gets fun. I don't want to go be old. What's wrong with that? Stay in physical shape. Yeah, and I believe numerically, yes. I'm sure the people you polled, married men did live longer. But I think that's going away. That's definitely going to go away. But I can tell you this for a fact without a researcher, the knowing the exact study. Divorced men live shorter than all you combined. A lot. Nonstop Dre, $5. How would you find out statistically how much the male population in a nation truly values freedom? TFM said only men actually. Who votes Republican? Generally speaking. Start there. Are you a lazy sack of shit, want security, and are willing to enslave other people to make sure you don't have to work for a living so you have that security? Vote Democrat. Are you like, fuck off, I'm not asking you for anything, leave me alone, and I'm going to support myself and last nothing? Vote Republican. There you go. There's your answer. Or Labor versus Tory, whatever all the different countries have. Ken Rose, $2. This is why none of you trust Democrat men. Like, they're all just like, what? Hatton Clogs, $2. Cappy saying anything anti-government is terror. Yeah, it was a little weird that my computer just shut down like that. Might be a little warm in here. Hatton Clogs, $2. Playing or liking video games is terrorism. Is it? What? I don't know. Is that something going on in the news? I don't care. Wisdom Vision Production is $5. Go on dates with women or become a hell diver and manage democracy for Super Earth. Down with space bugs and those filthy metal clinkers. I'm gonna have to get hell diver, and when I get home, game musings with Raziel. Well, 20 generous dollars. Thanks there, Raziel. By the way, if you have a channel, if you guys have, like, subscribe to Raziel. It looks like you got a channel. And for $20, I'll whore you out. Hell yeah. I'm 41, divorced after a 9-year marriage with a bipolar woman. Well, that's what she said. My health has improved so much since then. Yeah. Yes, sure it has. I bet. People think I look late 20s, early 30s. All my married friends are miserable, rapidly aging slaves. That's what I'm seeing. You're a little younger than me, but not by much. You're the generation. I'd say the millennials are, and Gen X, but definitely the millennials. That's where this marriage premium of life expectancy is going to go away. I just don't see it. Holy shit. Edward Patton. Did you hit too many zeros? 100 generous dollars. I've learned a lot from your videos over the course of the past 3 years, including a lot of your books. Thank you for your words, Cap. No problem, Ed. Thanks for the $100. You didn't have to do that. I mean, unless you're like rich and you felt like, yeah, you got no heirs, but you look younger than me. It's another thing for you guys out there. With all this marriage going down, just because I have to look at it. If you don't have kids, you got to get a will and testament together. Otherwise, it's just going to go to the state. It's just going to go to welfare. It's just going to go to single moms and kids that aren't yours. You're gonna be a cuck posthumously. The posthumous cuck. That is the posthumous cuck. So make sure it goes to some nieces or nephews that you love, or maybe a nonprofit that you really like. Don't become the posthumous. Is that how you spell it? It's U.S. Is that posthumous? Posthumous cuck. That's a good one. That's some good financial advice. But thank you very much, Ed. I really appreciate it. All right, that's it. All right, questions, answers, assholeconsulting.com. The book's linked below. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.